We will begin with Mr. Floyd. Philanese Floyd is the brother of George Floyd, who was killed by Minneapolis police officers on May 25th. Mr. Floyd has spoken eloquently about his brother's life, and we appreciate his being with us today, having flown to Washington to testify before us today directly from his brother's funeral in Houston yesterday. We are all so sorry for your loss. Mr. Floyd, you may begin.
Thank you. Chairman Gerald Nadler and members of the committee. Chairman Gerald Nadler and members of the committee, thank you for the invitation here today to talk about my big brother, George. The world knows him as George, but I called him Perry. Yesterday, we laid him to rest. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. I'm the big brother now, so it's my job to comfort my brothers and my sisters, Perry's kids, and everyone who loved him. And that's a lot of people. I have to be the strong one now because George is gone. And me being the big brother now is why I'm here today, to do what Perry always would have done, to take care of the family and others. I couldn't take care of George that day he was killed, but maybe by speaking with you today, I can make sure that his death will not be in vain. To make sure that he is more than another face on a t-shirt, more than another name on a list that won't stop growing. George always made sacrifices for our family, and he made sacrifices for complete strangers. He gave the little that he had to help others. He was our gentle giant. I was reminded of that when I watched the video of his murder. He called all the officers sir. He was mild-mannered. He didn't fight back. He listened to all the officers. The man who took his life, who suffocated him for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, he still called them sir as he begged for his life. I can't tell you the kind of pain you feel when you watch something like that. When you watch your big brother, who you looked up to your whole entire life, die begging for his mom, I'm tired. I'm tired of pain. Pain you feel when you watch something like that. When you watch your big brother, who you looked up to for your whole life, die begging for his mom. I'm here to ask you to make it stop. Stop the pain. Stop us from being tired. George called for help and he was ignored. Please listen to the call I'm making to you now, to the calls of our family and the calls ringing out the streets across the world. People of all backgrounds, genders, and races have come together to demand change. Honor them, honor George, and make the necessary changes that make law enforcement the solution and not the problem. Hold them accountable when they do something wrong. Teach them what it means to treat people with empathy and respect. Teach them what necessary force is. Teach them that deadly force should be used rarely and only when life is at risk. George wasn't hurting anyone that day. He didn't deserve to die over $20. I'm asking you, is that what a black man is worth? $20? This is 2020. Enough is enough. The people marching in the streets are telling you enough is enough. By the leaders that in our country, the world needs the right thing. The people elected you to speak for them, to make positive change. George's name means something. You have the opportunity here today to make your names mean something too. If his death ends up changing the world for the better, and I think it will, then he died as he lived. It is on you to make sure his death is not in vain. I didn't get the chance to say goodbye to Perry while he was here. I was robbed of that. But I know he's looking down at us now. Perry, look up at what you did. Big brother, you changed the world. Thank you for everything, for taking care of us on earth, for taking care of us now. I hope you found Mama and you can rest in peace with power. Thank you.
At this time, the program calls for a video by Vice President Joe Biden, and then we will hear from our own Congressman Al Green, then our own Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and then finally the mayor of this fine city, Mayor Sylvester Turner, in that order. God bless you.
Hello, everyone, on this day of prayer, where we try to understand God's plan in our pain. To George's family and friends, Jill and I know the deep hole in your hearts when you bury a piece of your soul deep in this earth. As I've said to you privately, we know you will never feel the same again. For most people, the numbness you feel now will slowly turn day after day, season after season into purpose through the memory of the one they lost. But for you, that day has come before you can fully grieve. And unlike most, you must grieve in public. And it's a burden that is now your purpose to change the world for the better in the name of George Floyd. Like so many others, I've watched with awe as you summon the absolute courage to channel God's grace and show the good man George was. To stir justice too long dormant, to move millions to act peacefully and purposefully. But among all the people around the world who feel connected to this tragedy are the ones who lost something that can never ever be replaced. To George's children and grandchild, I know you miss your dad and your granddad. Little Gianna, as I said to you when I saw you yesterday, you're so brave. Daddy's looking down, he's so proud of you. I know you missed that bear hug that only he could give. The pure joy riding on his shoulders so you could touch the sky. The countless hours he spent playing any game you wanted because your smile, your laugh, your love is the only thing that mattered at the moment. I know you have a lot of questions, honey. No child should have to ask questions that too many black children have had to ask for generations. Why? Why is Daddy gone? And looking through your eyes, we should also be asking ourselves why the answer is so often too cruel and painful. Why in this nation do too many black Americans wake up knowing that they could lose their life in the course of just living their life? Why does justice not roll like a river, nor righteousness like a mighty stream? Why? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we can't turn away. We must not turn away. We cannot leave this moment thinking we can once again turn away from racism that stings at our very soul, from systemic abuse that still plagues American life. As Thurgood Marshall once implored, quote, America must dissent from indifference. It must dissent from fear, the hatred, and the mistrust. We must dissent because America can do better, because America has no choice but to do better. I grew up with Catholic social doctrine, which taught me that faith without works is dead, and you will know us by what we do. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to deal with the denial of the promise of this nation to so many people for so long. It's about who we are, what we believe, and maybe most importantly, who we want to be, to ensure that all men and women are not only created equal, but are treated equally. We can heal this nation's wounds and remember its pain, not callous the heart and forget. I know Reverend Sharpton is there in Houston with you today. Rev, I watched you speak from Ecclesiastes last week in Minnesota, chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a time and a purpose and a season under the heavens. Well, today, now is the time, the purpose, the season to listen and heal. Now is the time for racial justice. That's the answer we must give to our children when they ask why. Because when there is justice for George Floyd, we will truly be on our way to racial justice in America. And then, as you said, Gianna, your daddy will have changed the world. May God be with you, George Floyd, and your family. In the words of a hymn from my church based on the 91st Psalm, may he raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, and make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. God bless you all. God bless you all.
Let me begin with this letter, a letter against racism in support of protests that have been happening across the United States. Tell us more about this letter. You are among the healthcare workers that signed this letter in support of the goal.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a letter, I believe it originates out of University of Washington, the healthcare providers there. And before they had closed it to signing, 1,200 healthcare professionals, including folks from the public health sector, as well as physicians, had signed on to this letter. And really, it's making a statement that we should be acknowledging that these protests are very important for a public health need, and that we shouldn't be restricting their use in the name of COVID-19 and the security and safety precautions that do need to be undertaken for the virus as well.
So in other words, racism is a different kind of public health crisis.
Absolutely. So it is a letter that I agreed with. And so I didn't pen this letter, but I agreed very much so that as a physician, we have to take a stand against racism as well, as it is a public health absolute crisis.
Dr. Kolahi, how much has the COVID-19 pandemic really exposed the huge racial divide that has been going on for generations in this country?
Yes, so I think one of the things is that the COVID pandemic has brought to light that, that there are folks disproportionately affected by this virus. In the public health sector, we have known that racism contributes to health inequality. The more we push for race equity, the more we can also get health equity for all. And so that is one thing we've known quite a bit. Now, here in California, we see the Latino population disproportionately affected. 50% of folks in California who have tested positive are Latino. We also know that in the African-American population that is tested positive, they're disproportionately affected. There are more Black folks who were essential workers who could not stay home, so therefore they were more at risk to being exposed. And then once they were exposed, we know that their access to care, their quality of care is actually less. And so the pandemic that affected the whole world did affect certain communities much more significantly than others. And so this kind of brought that to light.
When we were watching videos of the protests, and for those of us who took part, many of us were wearing masks. We saw other people wearing masks, but we can forget about social distancing in these protests. How concerned are you that that could possibly mean another uptick in cases, in positive COVID-19 cases in the coming days and weeks?
So I do have my concerns that these protests, which were not, they were not the perfect setup for social distancing, right? And so we want to encourage best practices because there is a concern that there will be an uptick from the protests themselves. We do know that the numbers were rising even before the protests. And so we're not really sure. And then, the protests are 3 weeks in and we're not seeing that surge. Certainly in our area, the doubling rate for this infection has not increased. And so there is some hope there. But as you can imagine, we are still concerned.
wallahi ba zan gudu ba.